In January of this year, the Department of Defense, after a lot of pressure, did a study on the inside of our epidemiology study on military aviators and a higher incidence of cancers. I think we've all known anecdotally that was the case. All of us that have cancers, and we were all military aviators. Quick sideline, my first squadron, VF-41, of 28 guys that first deployed in 1984, 11 of us have prostate cancer. So we knew that there was something to this whole thing. And so we're now at a point where we finally have data. It's all been just sort of bar talk and war stories, right? But we finally got the DOD to do this epidemiology study with 900,000 cohort analysis. And what it came out with is that, yep, you're right, aviators are at a higher incidence rate. And also ground crew. There was about 200,000 aviators, pilots and navigators and air crew, and then about 700,000 maintenance personnel and guys that worked on the airplanes on the ground. Real high incidence amongst aviators of thyroid cancer, which is new, and of course prostate cancer. One of the interesting issues out of that was it was a younger population, and the average age was 48 for developing prostate cancer. So it's one of these issues where we think we have evidence, and we've spoken with NCCN about trying to put veterans in the high risk category for prostate cancer. And this is really now evidence that we can present to the board to show them that this is truly the case. Now, aviators are one subset of veterans. However, we think that it's pretty much across the board because they use 700,000 ground crew or maintenance personnel. I mean, those not aviators, right? They're same issues, the same statistics of higher incidence rates. So how can we take this study, where would you see, now that we have this data, from a research perspective, where would you see us presenting this study? I mean, obviously to you is one, or to who the office you designate us to, but where would you see this study going?
Well, this kind of evidence touches a lot of offices within the VA. As you said, the VA's patient population is large, so is the VA. It's the second largest federal agency with about 300,000 employees. So you almost need a navigator to get through the VA. So the offices that come to mind for me, in addition to research, would be health outcomes of military exposures, which is the clinical side of the house group that focuses on the impacts of military exposures, in addition to obviously the National Oncology Program Office and the various offices that touch on the cancers that you mentioned, where the veterans seem to be at higher risk. I want to pick up on an item that you mentioned about NCCN, because VA, given its scale, and here I'm not just talking about veterans, though in this case it certainly applies to veterans in the case of aviators, but I believe that we can and should be informing clinical practice guidelines that ultimately feed back into those same pathways that drive the care within the VA. And that's why our partnerships with the clinical side of the house are so important, and why I would like to see us build greater partnerships with groups like NCCN, where findings from VA data could help to inform the pathways that get disseminated not just to VA, but to sites outside of VA as well.
Well, to your point, there are guidelines. We live with prostate, so we'll keep it bound there, but I mean, AUA has a set of guidelines for both clinicians and patients, and NCCN, ASCO's got their own. We're here at ASCO, and then the VA is going to develop its own clinical pathway. So I always have felt that the VA has the largest cohesive or patient group, right? So you've got the largest database that's actually controlled. Are there programs in place to actually exchange that data, both between, can outside places like AUA or whatever researchers, can they cooperate with R&D inside the VA, or how do we change that in your mind? How do we facilitate that change?
I would absolutely welcome those types of collaborations, and I think the first step is bringing the groups together and then letting them know about the capabilities of the VA as a research organization. Frankly, when it comes to prostate cancer, we've probably got a significant proportion of the prostate cancer in the entire country happening within the VA. So we really have a chance to make a difference in the lives of both veterans and non-veterans alike. There are some challenges to that, and I would be out of character if I didn't describe the importance of having IT resources for both clinical care and research. I'm going to get a little wonky boring here for a second, but within government, there are colors of money. Research has a particular color of money, clinical care has a color of money, and within VA, IT has a color of money. What that means is I can't use my dollars to buy IT resources. So that is an important area to track if you care about using data to inform veterans care.
That's great. And I think that's part of our role. We're finding this developing role as patient advocates that are living in the prostate cancer space, and that is one of the things that we hope to get out of our roundtables, and this is for everybody in the room, is that we want to grow this over the small groups that we have now, but to grow this to the point where we can have an informal venue where we can exchange business cards, we can talk about studies, we can start looking at the resources. I would guarantee that very few people in the industry know the extent of the resources that are inside the VA. Unless they're on a trial right now, they probably don't know it or they have access to it. But I don't think that they understand the size of the database, the one in Salt Lake City, and the one, all these things, and Dr. Rettig's new, whatever it is, tissue bank that he's got put in place. It's like a greenhouse of tissue or something, I don't know. But these are things that sort of, I think, would water the eyes of a lot of commercial investigators or even researchers at some of the large pharmaceutical companies. We as patients would really love to see that, encourage that development, a co-development or exchange of technologies. If it's IT money, we'll find the IT money. We'll go complain about it till you get it, right? So that's our job, to help facilitate those things. One of the issues, and I guess, Alicia, when we start a study in the VA, or if we start to encourage a clinical trial, when you stood up, you were with the Starport trial right from the very beginning, right?
Actually, I was not.
Okay, good.
Yes, no,
good. That's my question.
Yes.
Is how does the VA recruit people, and is it timely, or is it fairly easy to recruit support staff and people to get onto the trial?
If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. No, not so easy. They are trying to get better, and I know there are initiatives specifically at Hines to kind of offset that, because the process was so long that you run the risk of losing good talent, during that time. So, I was recruited just the traditional way, like, applied through USA, but it took a long time. It took extremely long, which is why I was not on at the beginning of the trial. And then there was, I think, some ambiguity on the specifics of the role. So, that kind of played a part as well. And, it wasn't easy, but again, they are putting things in place to try to offset that. And then, of course, COVID at the time impacted the whole recruitment process, if you will. So there were challenges, but again, I think that they're looking to try their best to just offset that, because they do realize what's at stake and how difficult it is to attract secure and then retain research or employees, period. But it's very important to have consistency in research.
Yeah. And I know it's a concern probably in most corporations now, including government and the VA. So Rachel, from a resource perspective, how hard is it or how difficult or what measures are you taking, both two questions, to recruit researchers or to encourage people to come on board to help out with some of these groundbreaking trials that are going on?
Well, let me just say that I came from academia myself about 6 years ago, and I probably make everybody around me sick telling them how much I absolutely love my job working in the VA. It is a remarkable, remarkable place to work. Now, when I went around the country speaking to our researchers and research staff, I heard time and again that HR was the #1 issue. Time to hire in particular was the #1 issue. So in collaboration with HR at the VHA level, at the Veterans Health Administration level, we have established a specialized research HR unit to help speed time to hire for researchers and research staff across the country. And that's something that we put into place this past spring, because time equals lives. And so bringing on study coordinators, if that slows your time to start up the trial, you may have somebody who qualified who no longer qualifies. Yeah. And so that is not just an administrative matter. It is a time equals lives matter. The second point I want to say is that while we often emphasize the role of the principal investigator, the head of a particular research project or trial, it takes a team to run a trial. And Alicia is a great example of the critical role of study coordinators. So when you're talking about attracting and retaining people, it's not just the researchers, it's the entire research team that's critical to the success of any clinical trial.
No, I think it's a fair point, and I think that even in large industry, I think they probably have some of the similar challenges of making sure when they go into a trial phase that everybody is on site and that sort of stuff. We've been, as an organization, VPCa, one of our claims to fame is that we are pretty good at coordinating the whole recruitment side of things from a patient perspective. We would like to see, we do a pretty good job because we advertise in places that, where veterans go and read or they go and look at stuff. And we would like to, that's one of the things that we want to do is to be more involved in, obviously we got a call the other day to help with bladder cancer. And we're like, well, it's not in our name. Well, it doesn't matter, it's close.
Yeah.
This is Dr. Reddy, it's close, but it's okay. So it's those are things where I know it's a point. We've also reached out to, as patients, we've reached out to some other industry to get access to resources, things like phones or smartphones. So for patients that are in a trial, so that you can stay in touch with them and you can get access to them. And there is a major telephone company or a phone company that has signed up to give us. We can get free phones now for patients on trials, and so that's another thing that we can advertise. Hopefully at ASTRO we'll be able to make it public.